Welcome back to an exciting video, and what we're talking about today are some tips and tricks that I use that may make you sound like a better guitar player than you actually are. So as you can see here, I'm playing my beautiful J Custom. This just happens to be one of my favorite guitars ever. This was one that my wife bought me, and I got to admit I have not played it a lot in fear of tearing it up. But lately I've thought, you know what? They're made to be played. I'm getting it out, and I'm just going to simply say this guitar is absolutely stunning. And if you get a chance to play a J Custom, by all means, play one. They're amazing guitars. So moving on, what we're going to do is, when I first started playing guitar, I was having some issues with certain things, and namely my right hand. And I'm going to say probably 90% of all guitar players, this is where they struggle, is the picking exercises. And there's thousands of picking exercises on YouTube, so I'm not even going to touch that topic because there's thousands of them everywhere. Just like there's thousands of guitar lessons, thousands of do this, don't do that, do this. Well, before we get started, let me say, the thing about playing guitar is getting from A to D. It doesn't matter how you get from A to D. And I remember a while back, this was years ago, I was talking to this guy, and he's like, dude, if you're not alternate picking everything, you're not playing guitar. And I thought, oh shit, I got to work on my alternate picking, man. I got to get great. And it took me a few years later to realize, well, that guy was full of crap. It simply doesn't matter how you get there. If you're going to economy pick, which I do probably 50% of the time I play, economy pick it. If you want to do it legato, do it legato. There's no right way or wrong way to do it. The only point is that you go from A to D. How you pass through B and C does not really matter. You know, well, there's these rules to music. There's these rules to guitar. Like the great Eddie Van Halen said, well, the rules are there. Break them all. And I'm a firm believer of that. There's nothing that says because you're playing in the key of A minor, well, that every single note you have to play has to be in the key of A minor. And there again, Eddie Van Halen was a whiz at throwing in just billions of accidentals. And a lot of times he did it so tastefully or so fast, you never even noticed what was going on. So the first lick we're going to work on here, this is one of my favorite licks, and I use this every single show probably 20 times without fail. And this is a lick you've heard 1,000 times over, and I'm going to play it slow for you, and I'm just going to do it here at the 9th fret. And you've heard that a million times, and every guitar player in the world has used that particular lick. So, when I first started playing guitar, and my left hand, my fret hand was developing a little faster than my picking hand, because out of all the guitar players in the world, 90% of them, this is the issue, is the right hand. And it takes a tremendous amount of work to really get this thing locked down. So, how did I get to D? I was at A. How did I get through B and C to get to D? Well, what I had to do, because the tempo I wanted to play that lick at, my right hand was not capable. So what I had to do is I had to, basically remove the problem, which at the time was my right hand. Now, I'm not saying do not work on your right hand on these licks. I'm saying if you need to use this lick right now and your right hand's not up to task, this is a perfect way to do it. And even to this day, even though my right hand has literally improved 1,000% over my guitar playing, because when I first started playing, it was shockingly bad. Even though it's improved 1,000%, and I still work on it till this day. Every day I work on right hand exercises because this has always been my Achilles heel, as it is most guitar players. But I still do this lick the same exact way because it's not broken, so why change it? And what I do here, like I said, you've heard this lick 1,000 times. I'm going to apologize right now for the noise. I do use an extreme amount of distortion because I play in an 80s rock and metal band, so I do use a lot of distortion, so it may be a little noisy, so I apologize for that now. But what we're going to do is we're going to do this lick right here at 9. And what you need to do is you need to bar off the E and B string. And if you can, this has become habit for me to where the top of my finger will rest underneath the string above it to help mute it. And that's just become a habit for me over the years. So what we're going to do is this lick is at 9 on the E string. On string 1, we're at 9. On 2, we're at 12/9. And at 3, we're at 11. And like I said, you've heard this 1,000 times. But the problem I had was getting it to the tempo I wanted, which was extremely fast. I could not pick it. So, like I said, I removed the problem. So what I did is I put my hand here, and I'll go ahead and bar these two strings off. I picked the first string. I hammered on to the second string at 12, pulled off to 9, and then hammered on at 11. And when I removed this finger at 11, since the tip of this finger was muting that, it really wasn't making a whole lot of noise, and it worked, and it sounded good. And the beauty of it is, it literally only took me probably about an hour, hour and a half to get this thing into a blazing, usable speed that I wanted. I just had to kind of get the mechanics down and the muscle memory, and I only had to worry about this hand and not this hand. So I only had to worry about half the work. So this is how it goes, and this is what I did. I started off kind of slow. And if you notice where my thumb is, it's in the middle of the back of my neck, which is where it should be. And you also notice how much bend I have on my fingers. You can't do this flat-fingered because you will hit all kinds of strings and make all kinds of noises. You need to get in the habit of attacking the strings directly down. And that is a fantastic speed for that lick. And like I said, over the years, as my right hand got faster and stronger, there was no reason for me to change how I did it because it worked perfectly and it works flawlessly. So there's no reason for me to go ahead and, okay, well, now I got to start picking all this out. So I just left it how it was. So hopefully that will be a good trip. Well, it could be a good trip. That will be a good trick or tip that you can use into your own playing, and it's actually not that hard. All right, real quick before we get into the next tip, I've got to say this. Last month, I had 11,900 viewers on my channel. And it was some insane amount of hours watched of video. I don't even know what the hours were. But I had 11,900 views. 97% of those people were unsubscribed. That is crazy to me. And please, if you're going to take the time to watch the videos, please subscribe to the channel because it really helps out what we do here, as it does with all YouTubers. We got to keep getting X amount of subscribers in order to make it worthwhile to keep bringing you all this content, to keep doing this stuff. But when I'm looking at it, when I have 11,900 hours watched and 97% of those people are not subscribed to my channel, which means out of all my subscribers, only 3% of my subscribers watched videos last month. That is crazy to me. Now, I'm glad a lot of new people are coming over and watching some of the stuff I'm putting up, but please subscribe to the channel because it helps my channel tremendously when you do that. And when I've got 11,900 people watching, and then I only, have, a very small percentage of them subscribing, just please subscribe. It really helps, and it kind of makes us know, us YouTube people, it kind of makes us know that what we're doing is being appreciated when you do subscribe or give it a like. Okay, keeping on with the same premise of this. Now, what that last one was, we're basically doing that in a minor pentatonic scale, and everybody in the world knows what the minor pentatonic scale. I'm not going to show you because if you're watching this video, then if you don't know what the minor pentatonic scale is, there's 9,764,000,000 ones on YouTube to show you what the pentatonic scale is. Hell, there's probably that many on my own channel. So go back and watch those. But as you know, the first position of the pentatonic, when you go up to the second position, right here, this is also the pentatonic scale, of course. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to expand upon this a little bit more because, like I said, it got to the point where it was just easier for me to whiz through these things and only have to worry about one hand and cut the work of this hand down substantially. And everybody's done this. Just on the two little note licks. But the good thing about this is now that we're cutting down the work of this hand, we can actually expand a little more and concentrate on this hand. And this is what I'm talking about. And that's also just a great sounding little lick to use. And I'm doing that, like I said, in the second position of the minor pentatonic scale. And it's just a fantastic little lick to use. And what we're doing here, well, again, we're barring off these two strings, the first and second. We're picking, doing a pull off from 14 to 12. And then we're hammering on up at 12 on the second string. Then we're picking again on the first string, but now we're coming up here to 16. And then hammering back at 14 on the second string. And that's just a fantastic lick. I love using that one. That one just sounds very, very shreddy. That's just a good sounding lick. And that's another one that kind of expands off of the first one. But that is another one of the ones that I use a lot that will make you sound a little better than what you actually are. Okay, one thing I noticed a lot over my years of playing, because I played a million cover songs, is it seems like most of the time people do tapping sequences, it seems like they always tap in a minor passage. What do I mean by that? Well, if we take F sharp minor, you can hear the minor tonality of this chord. That's minor, major, minor. Well, when they would tap, I guess I need some distortion for this. When they would tap through here, a la Randy Rhoads' Crazy Train, that is a minor passage. Well, what do you mean that's a minor passage? Well, if we take the F sharp minor, and we have a root, a minor third, and a fifth. Now, if we tap this out, we take the root, a minor third, and a fifth. And these are our chords. That's the root, third, and fifth. That's what makes a chord, and that is an F sharp minor. But what if we're playing in an F major? Well, we very well can't use that. It's not going to match with that. All we have to do is take our F sharp minor here, we move this third up to a major third, and we tap here, and now we have a major triad that we're tapping. Minor, major. And there's a big difference in the sound. Major, obviously, you have that more uplifting sound. Now, and I've noticed this, Eddie Van Halen does it. He always starts in a minor passage. Randy Rhoads does it. Brad Gillis does it. And I just kept noticing it over and over and over. And so I had to kind of rework my fingering a little bit because everything I had done had been basically in this position here with these fingers. Well, when you're down here, that's a hell of a stretch with these fingers. So I started bringing in my pinky and working on tapping in major scales. And that is a game changer for you when you're soloing, because you can't tap in a minor, which is what most people do. You can't tap over a major chord with a minor tapping passage. If you're doing the chord itself, if I'm playing an F sharp minor, I have to be tapping in an F sharp minor to give that chord the home that when I'm soloing in the chord to dominate, to strengthen that F sharp minor. You cannot use a major. So I started tapping in major because what if, like I said, we went to the F sharp minor, we went to that D. Well, I can't tap in a D minor there. So if I go to an F sharp minor here and I tap in this F sharp minor, well, if my next chord's a D major, I cannot tap in a D minor here. I have to tap in a major. Keep that in mind. All you got to do is take this finger, your ring finger, finger number 3, and move it up a half step. You're taking your third from a major third, from a minor third to a major third, and everything else stays the same. So expanding on tapping stuff, just little cool tips and tricks that I picked up, and going back between the major and the minor. And we've all heard this from Eddie Van Halen. We've all heard that from Hot for Teacher. I mean, everybody's heard it in the world. And that's actually a really cool little passage just because he uses it just to kick off that solo, and it just starts out of the gate, just full gas. And a lot of times I've wanted to use that, and I've been doing it in a minor key, and it actually sounds pretty good. Skipping out all the extra notes that Eddie Van Halen puts in it, this is a good one also that will also help you sound like a better guitar player than you are. If you know the minor pentatonic scale, and we're going to use A minor, and like I said at the beginning, if you don't know it, please watch a video that explains it. But knowing the A minor pentatonic scale, we know all this is in key. We know that. We also know that this is in key. All those notes are in key. But being that it's A minor and has no sharps or flats, all that is in key, which means all that is in key 12th fret, because it's just an octave up. So, armed with that knowledge, if you're doing something in A minor, and like I said, and now don't pay attention to these notes. I was just showing you an example that we're in A minor. Since all this is in key, then all this has to be in key at the 12th fret. This is what's important here. So if we're doing this in A minor, you can do this little sequence now knowing that your A minor and everything at the 12th fret is in key. Knowing that all that's in key, you can do these blazing little runs by following the pentatonic scale and staying at the 12th fret. Because all that is in perfect key. So if you're playing, you can do this over any chord in an A minor or a C major. You can do it over any of those, and it sounds great, and it's just a really good way to kind of kick off your playing, to kick off your solo. But there's something else that's really cool, and I kind of picked this up from Eddie Van Halen on his little passage where he's doing his For Hot for Teacher. Okay, a lot of those are accidentals. They're just not in the key, and it's okay because they're going by so fast, it works, and people use accidentals all the time. But when I'm doing this in a minor passage, if I wanted to play a minor tapping passage and I wanted to run all the way and descend the fretboard, it really doesn't sound that good. If I wanted to keep all the fingering the same, and like on this one, you have to change it. And then we switch right here. If I wanted to keep all the fingering the same, kind of like Eddie Van Halen does, it just doesn't sound good without adding in those extra notes that Eddie Van Halen does. What if we just did it 3 notes per string? Right there, when we get on that blue note, it starts to sound a little sour. But what if you did this in a major tapping sequence? It sounds completely different, and it sounds fantastic. And I love this little passage, this little run. And this is one of the greatest things that I've done. I mean, well, okay, let me see if I can rephrase this. This is one of the greatest things I've taught myself because it sounds absolutely brilliant. And it goes back to our 12 here. Now we're in A major. And listen how good that sounds. Just doing it all in majors. Listen to the difference as opposed to the minors. As soon as we get to here on the G string, it kind of loses the sound for me. But listen to it in major again. That sounds absolutely brilliant. And what a great way, if you're playing over, let's say your song's in A major, to kick off your solo that way. I mean, what a great way to kick your solo off, because that sounds huge. Throw some delay on that, dude. Absolutely brilliant sounding. So that's actually one of my favorite ones. Out of all these tips and tricks, my first favorite one, of course, is the one I showed you earlier. That one, and then that A major tapping passage. All right, here's another good little tip. And this is one that I've mentioned before. And if you know the major scale, when you're playing the major scale, and let's say we're here at C, you have these extra notes here. Because if you're starting on C and you're making a quick run, would you not want to end on C also? That just makes more sense to me. And if we're here at C, then we have this D, E, F that we're ending if we play all the strings. Well, okay, well, why don't we just do this then? There we go. And you can. But what I like to do is I will start when I make that particular major run where I'm using that fingering, which is the 3, then you close it in. When I'm using that fingering, I always start on the 5th string, because if I start here on C, check this out. I end on C every single time. And to me, that just made more sense because I'm starting on my tonic and I'm ending on my tonic. So it was just always smarter to me. It seemed like a better idea just to go ahead and do it from C to C. It just always seems smarter to me to do that. And that way I don't have to worry about, if I blast past that C and then I have that extra D, E, F on top. This way I end up on my 6th string. And this is just a quick little tip. I think it's a very smart one, and one that, most people, you see them, they start, their majors up here on the top. Start it on the 5th, and that way when you start on your tonic, you end on your tonic. And it works pretty good. All right, and this is another one. If you're having a problem, like I said, it doesn't matter how you get from A to D. It doesn't matter how you go through B and C. The only goal is starting at A, which for all intent and purposes we'll say is right here, and then ending on D. Starting on A and ending on D. That's the only thing that matters. How you get through there does not matter. And you can simply legato everything, and that works just fine. Or you can pick everything. But that may be the issue for you, is picking. That alternate picking. Alternate picking is kind of an Achilles heel, because ultimately there's one spot where you have to jump a string. There's no way around it. You have to jump. Let me go to a clean channel here. And to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, if we come up here to E, and we're doing our major scale, and we're going to do 3 notes per string. We start with a downstroke. Down, up, down. Well, we have to jump this string number 4. We have to jump over to catch the upstroke. And we go up, down, up. Now we're jumping back over that string to catch the one below it. And that's how alternate picking works. And that's the big wrestle with alternate picking, is the constant having to jump strings. The best thing to do, in my opinion, is if you're struggling with that, is to economy pick. Well, economy picking is exactly what it is. You're taking out wasted motion. And sometimes jumping over a string is a wasted motion. So why don't we just push through the string and not have to worry about it? So if we do this, starting here, and we go down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down. That way we only have one thing to worry about. All we've got to worry about on this hand is down, up, down. That's it. Let this hand do its work. And everything on our side is exactly the same. Down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down. And it doesn't matter that you're not alternate picking. The end result is absolutely identical. And all we're doing is pushing through. Down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down. And it makes it actually pretty easy. And it's called economy picking for a reason. It's called economy picking for a reason. It's called economy picking for a reason, because you're taking out wasted movement. And I love economy picking. And even though my alternate picking has gotten substantially better over the years, because Lord knows I've worked on it, because I still hear that dude's, his words echo in my head, 20 years later. If you're not alternate picking, you're not playing guitar. And then, like I said, I quickly realized he was full of crap. But I still hear that, and I still work on freaking alternate picking all the time. But if you do everything with the economy pick, you're just simply pushing through strings, and it's so easy. And one thing you will notice is once you kind of get a feel for it, you'll notice how much better, how faster your speed will start to increase just by doing that. But, and this is one thing that I don't know if a lot of people understand this or not, and I don't really see a whole lot of talking about this. Sometimes you need time to set up before you make the next jump. And that's just the facts of life. What am I talking about? Sometimes you need a little bit of a runway to get things going. Well, when you're doing these big building, you're gonna do this big ascending across the fretboard from top to bottom, and like Still of the Night, where the solo comes in, you hear, there's a lot of build up there. And he's not playing one or two notes per string. He's actually repeating notes on the strings over and over and over. And that gives you time to kind of get set up and get mentally prepared for what's happening on the next string. And this is what I'm talking about. If we go back to here, instead of just doing the 3 notes per string, what if we did it like this? That gives us so much time to get this hand in a rhythm for economy picking or for alternate picking, that it actually makes it a lot easier. And sometimes if you give yourself a little bit of a run up and you do, like I said, how many notes we got here? We're running 7 notes here. And we're doing a group of 3, down 2, back up 3. And this is giving our hand a minute to get into that sequence locked in before we have to immediately, jump straight to the next string. This is giving us a second to get locked into that rhythm. Then when we go to the next string, we're kind of already locked in. We don't have to think about 3 strings jump, 3 picks jump, 3 picks jump, 3 picks jump. We're giving ourselves a minute for everything to kind of get synced into itself. And that way, when you're doing these runs, if you add these extra notes, it gives you a little more time to get ready for the alternate pick or the economy pick, whichever one you're doing next. It kind of gives you a minute to get set up. And also, it's really cool because there's so many solos that have these massive big buildups. They have these massive big buildups going into, their ultimate solo, whatever they're doing at the end of it. So they'll just have this huge, this flurry of notes getting to that point. And then getting back down. And so adding those extra notes is really going to help you out mentally preparing. If you got to do like a string skip or just an alternate pick where you got to jump over a string, adding those few extra notes will mentally prepare you to make that jump. And you're probably thinking, well, what is the point of that particular thing? Well, that particular thing is actually what helped me to learn my alternate picking better, because it was giving my brain a chance to cycle in on what was happening. Instead of just trying to blast through everything right out of the gate, it was giving me a second to kind of settle in and be prepared for what was going to happen. So if you're doing this and you're using economy picking and you're just pushing straight down, but if you're doing this in your alternate picking, this gives you enough time and it gets you locked into that beat, that tempo, to get ready to make that skip. And those couple of extra notes kind of helps you feel your way through the passage instead of just having to run straight through it. And that's actually, out of everything I've done to help my alternate picking, believe it or not, that's probably the one that helped me the most, because it gave my brain a chance to settle down and think about what was coming up instead of just trying to run through it. So that's actually one of my favorite ones also, because that one really helped out my alternate picking quite a bit. All right, now this is one of my favorite things here. as you remember when I talked earlier about tapping and I did the major and the minor tapping, and that's a great tip. Start practicing in the major tapping instead of the minor. It's just a whole different sound, and it really kind of spices things up a little bit. But one thing I also notice is that when I see a lot of people, when I go out and see bands play, they all kind of tap the same exact way. They're not throwing a lot of variation into their tapping. And this is something I think is critical. And this is probably one of the best tips. And there again, will help you sound much better than you actually are, because it kind of removes a lot of this from the equation when you're tapping. And if this is one of your big problems, then tapping might just be something to help you kind of get to the next level of your playing. So we're back here in F minor again. And if you notice, you hear a lot of tapping like this. I hear a lot of this when I go see bands. And there's nothing wrong with that. That sounds good. I mean, it sounds really good. And the nice thing about that one is you have all these kind of extra notes in it. So you really don't have to move that fast to make it sound like you're flying. And you can see I'm really not moving all that fast at all. But that one's been kind of so burned out to me that it's just kind of gotten old. So I very seldom, I will use that, but I'll only use it under one certain circumstance, so I'll get to at the end of this one. But to kind of go over everything, you do have, that's one way of tapping, where you just have one finger on the fretboard at a time. And another way is you have an ascending and a descending passage. This is ascending. And then you have descending. And believe it or not, they all have their own specific flavor to them, and they all sound different played over the same chord. It does not sound the same. And if you don't believe me, just record yourself playing, a couple of chords and play over that, and you'll see what I'm talking about. They actually change the entire way the solo sounds. Then you have this kind of the circular pattern one that Eddie Van Halen loves to use, which is... And Randy Rhoads loves using that too. And of course, Eddie Van Halen, on Hot for Teacher, he uses that same type of pattern with the open strings on it. But as cool as those are, my favorite one to use personally is I do a 2-to-1 ratio. And I got this from, listening to a lot of Randy Rhoads actually, where he'll do this. And that's probably the one I use probably 80% of the time. I just like that one. I like the way it sounds. It's not, a very super rhythmic type of thing. It's not, 1 2 3 2 1 3 1 2 3 2 1 2 3 2 1 2 3 2 1. It's not like that, or 3 2 1 3 2 1 3 2 1, or 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. It kind of breaks that up a little bit. And that's actually one of my favorite ones to use, and that's a good one. And what you do is it's 2 with this hand, 1 with this hand. Now, the one that I've really been favoring a lot lately, and this works best on the B string, because the guitar is tuned in fourths, except for when you get to right here on the second and third, it's tuned to a major third. So this is actually one of my favorite ways to tap. When I'm on the B string, I do this almost every time. I love doing this because it adds just a little more spice into it, and it sounds really damn cool to boot. So back here at apparently our favorite F sharp minor, we're going to do our F sharp. And what we're going to do is we're going to hit this 7 up on the 3rd string. So we're going to do this. And it just makes it sound absolutely huge. And when you do it really quick, absolutely sounds fantastic, adding that 7 in there on top of it. And like I said, if we go up here, then now we got a problem, because now we're having to do this. Which still works, but it's double duty on that one finger. It's much easier when you incorporate the other finger. So that is my video on some of my tips and tricks that I use all the time, and hopefully you'll find these useful, and they will help you. Hopefully they help you sound like a better guitar player than you actually are, because when I was starting out, they made me sound like a much better guitar player than I actually was. And there's just ways that I found to kind of work around and make up for a lot of my weaknesses at the time. Now, once again, I'm absolutely not saying do not work on your weaknesses. You need to do it. You need to do it. You need to do it. I cannot stress that enough. But even though I have corrected a lot of my weaknesses over the years, I still do those riffs, those tips, those tricks. I still do them the same exact way. Like I said, it's not broken, so there's really nothing to fix. So I still do them exactly the same way. And so incorporate those. And like I said, you can go back and watch the video. You can see, go back and watch the section over. Everything has chapter markers in it. Or you can join my Patreon page where I'll put all the stuff up onto my Patreon page. It will be up there. So we're going to wrap it up right there. And like the great Sammy Hagar says, if you miss the beat, you lose the rhythm and nothing falls into place. And no matter what you do, for the love of God, rock on.